Now, speaking about exploding topics, Nvidia is just, I mean, nonstop. The stock is, I mean, you can't buy it. Like you want to buy it, but you can't buy the stock. It's like through the roof. Um, the reason I want to talk about it today is not just because it's like making all-time highs, but last week you said it was, if you had to think of a stock that you were in partly because of
Meme.
hype reason, yeah, that this would be one of them.
This would be one.
When you see this stock increase like this, does it? Are you like, well, I'm glad I was in before because I would never get in now, or would you actually, if you didn't have a position, succumb to it and actually buy Nvidia at these prices?
This is definitely where I'm adding to a position because momentum is just so strong. This little tiny pullback that Nvidia is experiencing right now from what I would consider a rejection of the last high, right? Like it tested the high of, what was that, 140.76, and then we hit a high yesterday of 140.89. So basically, on the wick, just would not pass that all-time high. I want to see probably a small pullback from here, and I might add in. I'm one of these traders for in general, I like swing trades where I can start buying on the way down if I feel like there's a lot of support for momentum in the long run. And in this case, Nvidia is one of those great examples. As we're thinking through the year-to-date performance of some of the largest asset classes, kind of comparing all the sectors together. Gold is on a tear, Bitcoin's on a tear. We've got some really interesting assets out there. But year to date, Nvidia is up 186%. It's pretty unbeatable. And I think the excitement around it, and since there's really only two bets that can be made on the AI play, Microsoft because of its exposure to OpenAI, and Nvidia because most video cards that are powering AI are coming from Nvidia. Those plays are pretty fascinating. TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Company. Yeah, that was one of the more recent ones that was pretty interesting. Super Micro is another breakout play that just started to crop up, but Nvidia's kind of had the bag all week. So I would like to see this break happen above the all-time high, and then I'm going to start looking to figure out when I want to wind down that position because I bet pretty big on this one.
Well, let's take a look at. I just want to play this clip from Stan Druckenmiller, who a famous trader, billionaire trader, on his views on Nvidia. Actually, I wanted to mention while I queue this up that the I could almost hear the comments that they're saying, well, in the crypto space, there's been all kinds of things that have gone up more than Nvidia, and that those would have been better plays or what have you. Yeah, I mean, no one's saying not to have any of those, but frankly, the case that you were making for because I was sort of making the case that the software was the play I was really hoping for. That those were the stocks I wanted to see take off. I'm not really an infrastructure guy. I'm not really a hardware guy. I don't really know how to judge any of these things. And I believe you were making the case that we're just not there for the software yet. Even though there's new AI stuff, projects, and features coming out every day. I mean, Adobe just released. I don't know if you've seen the things that Adobe's been releasing, their 3D motions, their animations, their generative AI, their in painting. I mean, I'm like, okay, now I think I have to go back to Adobe. But you take a look at their chart, and it hasn't gone up. Like their Adobe chart has not moved based on this, and the Microsoft play is more like a proxy on the fact that their hand inside OpenAI, but it doesn't compare to the actual hardware plays that we're seeing right now.
Right.
And so it's one of those things that maybe it could be 5 years before, let's say 3 to 5 years before the software play really becomes a stock you want to pay attention to. And in that time frame, I guess you're right. The missing out on the Nvidia stock is sort of silly. We all see this trend happening.
Yeah, I guess when it comes to the software side of things, you'd be looking for the player in the game that has a competitive moat that the other players don't. Right now, every software play out there is effectively using the same providers of AI technology. And at the core of most of it is OpenAI's APIs that most people are powering their apps from. There are some, open source models out there, but that sort of flattens the competitive realm for most participants that are looking to make software on top of AI. But as far as I'm aware, there's not any major player in the game except for OpenAI that has a closed source model that is generating enormous sums of profit. So the if we're looking at it from the software angle, I'd be looking for somebody that's got um, some kind of intellectual control or intellectual property control over a good portion of the market. And there's just no public access to that at the moment. No publicly traded company anyway.
So the idea of like these fine tunes, these flavors, these interfaces on the AI stuff, like you don't think that'll be the thing that takes off because they're never going to have like a moat around that?
I think they all will take off. They'll get used and consumed, but I think that the space is so competitive right now, it's hard to figure out who the winner is. So the market is sort of making their bets where there is a clear and obvious winner. Nvidia is one of those examples. I know last time we spoke about Microsoft expanding into nuclear energy. I'm interested in where the energy market is going to start shifting here
Right.
over the coming months, because it's, again, one of these things where who has control over the production of energy at this point and stands to gain the most from it, because the amount of power that's going to be consumed by all of this is going to be enormous.
Well, let's take a look here what Stan Druckenmiller was saying when he was on Bloomberg earlier this week. I know this was passing around online, but let's just take a look in case people haven't seen it.
On the subject of the 50 basis points.
No, this is to be on the Nvidia. I just wanted to get
Nvidia.
his quote on here.
Sure.
Give me 1 second.
A while ago, we spoke about Nvidia, and you had said that it would be something that you held for years. And ever since then, you held it for a while, but more recently, you've been selling it off. How much do you have left of it, and why have you been selling? Can you see yourself getting back into it again?
I've made so many mistakes in my investment career. One of them was I sold all my Nvidia, probably in somewhere between 800 and 950. I think it's 1,300 on that stock now.
You own none today?
I own none, and I own none the last 400 points. It was a big mistake. In terms of AI, and by the way, when I saw you at that conference, which was 18 months ago, I fully expected to own it for years, but I think it was 300 and change. And as I also said at a media interview, I'm not Warren Buffett. So I thought I was going to, but what changed is it tripled in a year, and I thought the valuation was rich. We are big long-term believers in AI, and there's still many ways we're playing AI, particularly the infrastructure that's been built out to support the power needed. And yes, I think Nvidia is a wonderful company, and were the price to come down, we get involved again. But right now, I'm licking my wounds from a bad sale there.
So right there, that idea, so it hits on that the energy grid that's necessary for the infrastructure play you were just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the idea that even the big guys, I mean, you think to yourself, he has the money. Why would he sell out of this play? Why not just buy and hold it? And clearly, he makes a decision because he thinks it's better to do so. And when you hear him start off with, "I've made many regrets in my life," you know that this is really paining him, that he's not part of this move. So it's just on this one thing I wanted to ask about, because it was a sort of like a conflict that a friend of mine had this week, where buy and hold, like if the trade you're doing is a thesis on a narrative, on a trend that's happening, a secular trend that's occurring,
Mm-hmm.
there might be buying on dips makes sense, but trading it might be the very worst thing you can do, because you'll never be able to pick the tops and bottoms exactly to make that trade worthwhile. You'll always miss certain highs, and you'll have to sell out after giving back some gains.
That's right.
Is that your opinion on that too, that it's more of a buy on dip thing?
Yeah, I mean, at least it was for me. I bought the last pullback for Nvidia, and I when I hear Druckenmiller describe that he's pained by not being involved in this move, it also says something pretty big there, which is that he doesn't know where the top is. Nobody knows where the top is, right? I have an estimate of where I want to get out just based on technicals, but from a valuation perspective, especially since Druckenmiller is more of a value guy and he plays both sides, he's long short. He doesn't know how high this is going to go. So he doesn't want to take that risk of just jumping right back in, even on a technical pullback, because they might be risking an enormous amount of capital from not only the increased volatility of Nvidia's price right now, but also like, where do you set your stop? How much variance are you willing to let it go and still be right about your thesis? So it's just so hard to get back in at these levels, mainly because the risk reward proposition isn't there anymore. If you can't calculate where the reward's going to go, how high does it go, and how much risk do I have to put in? And not only that, but I have to make that risk reward even bigger because volatility is much higher right now. The more Nvidia goes up in price, the more volatility and price action starts to move around. So you're going to have to place your stops way outside of that activity. It was better to be in Nvidia a year and a half ago when volatility was much lower. That's the point.
Switch Nvidia for Bitcoin 5 years ago, 7 years ago, and we all know that story. So that's the thing. So will you be waiting like for a narrative shift, or do you before selling out on it? Before you're like, okay, I'm out. I got the profits I want. Because let's say it could drop volatility wise. Let's say it could drop 30% and still be bullish.
Sure.
Will you stomach that if
No,
the narrative is still strong?
I'm slowly raising stops right now, and those stops are based on volatility. So I'll start unwinding when I think it's reached a technical high, but we're already in overvalued territory. So at any point here seems like the point to get out.
So as far as you're concerned, like your stop, you're happy with that if you get that profit. And
Correct.
if you can't capture more, fine. If you can't, well, you're not trying to time the top here.
Right, exactly. I won't be able to time the top. I don't know what the ultimate value should be. And I could be wrong. I might be in Druckenmiller's position in a year from now if Nvidia just continues to over $200 a share.
That's Amazon $9 and go, oh, I sold it at $1,000 per share. I really made a great deal. Really? Because
Sure.
I went up 3x past that. That's crazy.
So
Okay.
eventually I'll want to see a blow off and a real strong pullback. One thing you'll notice, especially with value investors, and I've watched this with looking at 13F reports every quarter for 10 years now, they like 50, 60, 70% drawdowns before they start getting involved. That's where the sweet spot is. They're not interested in 10% pullbacks. They want big pullbacks. So we would need to see a big correction in Nvidia's valuation before you start seeing some of the big guys step back in.